Good morning, Tanya, for Thursday, the 6th of Av, July 31st, and we are starting the second letter of the Alter Rebbe, and it starts on page 86 in the Chayenu, and actually says when he wrote this letter. Not all the letters have a date, but it says it was a right after a watershed moment in the Chabad and the Chasidim's existence, and that was after Peterburg, or in English, the St. Petersburg imprisonment and subsequent release of Rabbi Zalman, the Alter Rebbe, which was seen as when the Tsarist government imprisoned Rabbi Zalman upon slander from the non-Hasidic community, and he was taken to prison, and he was ultimately vindicated and released, and it was seen as a watershed moment of the permanence and the acceptance of the Hasidic movement, which wasn't too old at that moment, at that time in 1797, I think. 1798, I'm sorry. Anyways, that's the background of the letter. It's important for the background because the letter is a communal letter. He's writing to his Hasidim, telling them that even though you probably feel very vindicated that those that tried to harm us were thwarted, and I was released amidst a lot of recognition. And he says, do not gloat. Don't gloat to your opponents. And he starts the line from the Chumash, Katanti mikol chasadim ikol emes. I've become small from all the favors and from all the truth. This is referring to Yaakov as an introduction to his plea to God that to save him from his upcoming meeting with Esau. He was very worried because Esau was very strong militarily and Yaakov was very wealthy, but he was a sheep tycoon with a big family. He was afraid that Esau would hurt them. So he started the prayer to God, and he starts off, I'm small. So literally what it means is, what Rashi explains, the simple meaning is, if you look in the Chumash, in Genesis 32:11, Rashi says, Yaakov says, God, you did tremendous kindness to me. And I'm worried that because I got all this incredible blessing and salvation from bad guys along the way, I've used up my merits, and I don't have any merits. I don't have enough merits left to be saved from Esau. So the Rabbi Zalman actually translates in a little bit of a different way. He says, well, actually, not. I'm sorry. That with every single kindness that God gives you, a person should become humble. Right? Yaakov was humbled, did not feel entitled to, God's salvation, because though the literal meaning is he felt his credits were used up, but the deeper meaning is that every favor that God does to you should make you humble, which, by the way, is not default human way of being, right? Someone does well in business, they think they're great. They must be a really good person. mean, God was very kind to them, let's say materially, like, oh, that must mean that I'm like very superior. It's the exact opposite. If God is kind to you, it should evoke a sense of smallness. Why? So in Kabbalah, chesed, the term of kindness, we know is a term used for revelation, expansiveness. So the supernal sphere of chesed is called the right arm. As scripture says, his right arm embraces me, which means if God is doing a kindness, he's giving of it, it's showering of God's goodness, God's being into you. I mean, God's hugging you. You're close to God. I mean, besides you're getting a nice blessing, you're getting some material, you're getting some good in your life, you're close to God. And whoever is closer to God, what does that make you? Feel more arrogant or less arrogant? It should make you more humble.
I've noticed that when I get together with great people, I'm definitely more humble.
Oh. Yeah, but that's only because you're comparing yourself to someone who's greater than you. We're saying, let's say,
No, 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 not at all. Not at all. I'm awed by their by what I see and what I hear, and
yeah,
I'm
you feel
but I don't say, well, that's because I'm not as good as them, or because I'm not, because somehow we differ in one way or another. I just seeing their
right.
greatness
Interesting. Right. Right.
it feels good.
Interesting. I'm trying to. I really need a little more time to read up on this letter. It's a very famous letter of the Alter Rebbe. I have to read a little bit. Maybe I'll get back to you because if you look at the concept of chesed, kindness, expansiveness, closeness, versus the converse of that, which is distance, boundaries, God's severity. Both kind of make you feel small, but in different ways, I guess. But anyways,
Mm, mm.
the closer you are before God, it says, the more you're nothing, right? As you say, you're in the presence of greatness, you feel like you're overwhelmed by this greatness in front of you.
It can
I think
also
that,
be a form of warmth, if you know what I mean. Metaphorically speaking, warmth.
well, if the great person is giving you a tumble, as they say, and is inviting you to their home for tea, right? Then you're very, very humbled by this, like sitting in the presence of greatness. So maybe it's something like that. I'm not exactly sure. I think it might be like that somewhat. Anyways, his point is, if God is hugging you, giving you kindness, you should realize this is a closeness to God, and you should feel even smaller in God's presence. This attitude, which again is not intuitive. I have coffee. I'll put some almond milk in it. There's a coffee. It's mine, but under the. Should put some milk in it. Thank you. This kind of higher self response, meaning the default thing is you get good, you're like, I must be really good, so you're more ego. The opposite, if you're getting a greatness to a kindness to you that should make you have humility, this is what we call the right side of holiness and the chesed to Avram. Avram is someone who is known for his chesed, right? God grants, we say in the prayers, you grant truth to Jacob and loving kindness to Avram. Avram, he paid that kindness forward. But Avram was also the guy who said, I'm dust and ashes, right? The more kindness God did to him, the more humility he had. Now, interesting, if you remember, this verse was said in the name Jacob. Jacob said this about his impending meeting with Esav. It says, this humility born of kindness is also the characteristic trait of Yaakov. Yeah. Thank you. And therefore he justified himself for his fear of Esav and did not regard the divine promise given to him as being sufficient. And behold, I am with you, and I shall protect you wherever you go. This was so because Yaakov regarded himself as utterly insignificant on account of the multitude of God's favors. As he said, I embarked on my life journey with my staff only, and now I crossed the Jordan. I'm coming back with enough property for 2 camps. And he considered himself as being utterly unfit and worthy to be saved, and so on. As our sages of blessed memory expressed it, Yaakov was apprehensive lest sin would cause him not to be saved. He says, for it appeared to him that he had sinned. He wasn't actually, he really was meritorious, but because he was so humble from all the goodness, he felt, how could I be worthy of anything more? It is different, he compares this to Alter Rebbe, to everything that exists, right? The humility response to divine grace. It has its counterpart in unholiness, in Klippa, what we call that, which is personified by Yishmael, Avram's son. Avram had 2 children, right? Yishmael and Yitzchak. Yitzchak personified actually Gevura, more restraint, different than his father. But Yishmael, it says, was in many ways similar to Avraham with kindness. We see a couple of, Avram trained him in kindness. So he personified kindness. But we know Yishmael was not Jewish, and he represented kindness in an unholy way. What was that? That the more kindness that was given to him, the more he grew in pride, arrogance, and self-satisfaction. As a matter of fact, Yishmael became a leader of bandits. Accordingly, so this is the principle. This is the principle that when God gives you grace, you should be very appreciative and humbled by it, and that should make you truly humble. Accordingly, I am now making a weighty announcement to all the men of our Hasidic brotherhood regarding the multitude of favors that God has done with us, saving the Alter Rebbe from prison and whatever. And as a result of these favors, hold on to the attribute of Jacob, as we just talked about. For Jews are known as the remnant of his people and the remainder of Israel. This is a play on the words that we're on one hand, we're the surviving remnant of the Jewish people post-temple destruction, but we consider ourselves as remnants, he says. The Jewish people look at themselves as remnants, as something superfluous and dispensable. Let the men of our brotherhood not become haughty in relation to the brethren, right? To our brethren, the opponents who put me in prison. They're still our brethren. Let them not jeer nor whistle derisively at them, heaven forfend. A strict warning, hold your peace, mention nothing. Rather, the men of our Hasidic fraternity are to subdue their spirit. You can imagine the jubilation and the expansive spirit of the Hasidim post the salvation and the thwarted attempt of the opponents to harm their leader. But subdue your spirit and heart before every man, according to the attribute of truth to Jacob we spoke about, which is with humility, as it says, a famous line from Proverbs. A soft answer turns away anger. A soft answer, a soft response assuages anger. And with a restrained spirit. And through all this, I mean, there was a lot of tension. There was a lot of opponents to Chassidim. Through all that, perhaps God will put a conciliatory and loving response in the heart of our brethren. For as water reflects one's face, so does the heart of one man reflect the heart of the other. Because the goal is not to win. The goal is to do the right thing and have others ultimately come around. Amen. So if they have some issues that's making it hard for them, a conciliatory approach or a very humble approach